I wanted to pursue truth. Just want to do a quick one because I wasn't sure whether I mentioned it too much in the last two. Obviously, it's about Israel and Hamas, the war, and seeing more things now. It's interesting. Like as you see more things, it can change your views on things. That's the problem. You see, people they often get stuck on, oh, I'm going to hold you to account to this point of your time when you said this, whereas we evolve. We're not stationary in any way, and it's good not to be stationary in the mindset to always look at things because when I first went through, and I've got lots of other bits I wanted to share. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to share them because there's so many of the bits, interesting interviews from both sides, Israel and Palestine, and even one from Hamas. But just seeing now, when I first saw it, it was like a few hundred Israelis that died, and now the number is 1,300, and now we're getting to hear the individual stories, and just obviously, I knew it was a humanitarian massacre, but now hearing all these things, hearing the concert where, I mean, they were on Sky News, someone talking about it today, they couldn't verify it, but I know that apparently there is videos out there. I haven't seen any of these, but I mean, I think there should be a news, and I know I've mentioned this before, a news channel, maybe online, where they actually show all these things. Maybe Sky could make like a news after 9 o'clock, or a different stream, just only you don't have to put a pin in, so only adults can watch it and those who choose, where it has the full truth. Because I think thing is, it's easy for people to make assumptions and sort of think, oh well, it's not very much or whatever. When you actually see things, it makes a difference. I know I've seen a few things of these events, and they haunt you. Yeah, that's probably why we don't see them, because they do haunt you, some of these things. But some of the descriptions that people are giving, that babies were beheaded, it seems so impossible. I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, I suppose there's a reason why people may lie. But the fact is that other things that are obviously going to be true about, the killing of children and women and elderly people, not to mention just normal aged men and women, innocent civilians. And I think the problem is I was thinking about this, and I don't know if I already mentioned this, but the problem is with the Israel-Palestine issue, and I can see this from everyone talking about it from those areas, and not even the West, is the coldness of it. And I think the problem is when I say coldness, I mean like they can only see one side, and there's obvious reason for that. But I think it's the thing is, when you're born into this and it's happened for so many years, people like us who haven't lived in that, it's not possible to feel those feelings. Like these terrorists have been, I would say, made. Well, all of us are made to some certain extent, and that's why I think the actions that are happening in Gaza are only going to is not a good idea from a humanitarian point of view, an international law point of view, and also from the fact that it's going to breed more terrorists, because these children who are going to get bombed and maybe don't believe in Hamas. I didn't realise that Hamas was a political party there, and that's why people don't want to denounce them, why they don't want to call them terrorist organisation, even though what they're doing fits within terrorism. I saw the Hamas leader talk about he didn't see these people as civilians when they tried to say, because Islamically you're not allowed to kill, but Islamically you're not allowed to do loads of things that people seem to do. And sort of, they're trying to circumnavigate that, or these aren't civilians. And seeing their doctrines of years ago seems to suggest that they don't believe any Israeli would be a civilian. They're all fair game, as it were. And that's just not true. Civilians are civilians. I get the idea of like oppression, like if you claim to be oppressed, like say in South Africa and maybe in the Gaza Strip, but if they weren't actually working on that oppression, they're not guards or something. Like, you're going to say if a military person has a wife and a child, they are then not civilians? Combatants and non-combatants, because I know that's written in the Quran and things, and obviously in international law as well. But I think we can all understand that children and elderly, or definitely children, are definitely civilians. There's no one, that can't be changed. So just to see them lie, and I think the thing is because they've been brainwashed. Well, not brainwashed, because they've lived in that situation. They've lost perspective of humanity, and I see this from the Israelis as well, who are talking about, the disregard they have for international law, and that the West is helping them with. And that was one thing that I felt that I could see that, like when they're doing the siege, when they're turning off food, electricity, water. Gaza was pitch black yesterday, and rockets firing both sides. And, there are undoubtedly people that believe in Hamas there. There are Hamas people there. There are hostages there, but there's also civilians there who don't believe in any of this, that want to live peacefully, that, wish they'd been born in a different time and place so that they could live peacefully and not evolve into this thing. So it's against international law, and to see the Israelis so hard-hearted about it, but it's because they've lived in this situation, have been terrorized. Both sides, both Israeli and Palestinians, are victims of this situation and have been terrorized. And I'm not trying to equate or whatever. I'm just saying that in individuals, they've gone through things, and the West, I think that they're very friendly with Israel, and there's a reason for that historically. But we've got to be careful that they're not on the side when, if they're doing something wrong, they need to be told they're doing something wrong, don't do it. You can't then support them, because then it gets difficult in the future if war crimes allegations come about, which I assume must do, because the UN are even talking about because I did a quick search and I was surprised Mark Austin didn't do this. There's against Geneva Convention, which I assume is international law, to do this about the water and electricity, because these people may starve, the hospitals may run out, and also the fact is they're sort of saying, well, it's Hamas's fault. Well, yeah, I get that in a way, but it's not really. If you're responsible for the rockets that are dropping and for the guns that are going to be firing, and if you kill civilians, and you're not meant to. Well, they're not meant to. International law is international law, and if you're going to abide by that, if you're going to moan about when Russia don't follow it and other countries don't follow it, and no, the UK and the US and Europe didn't follow it when they invaded illegally, according to the UN, according to Kofi Annan after he left Iraq and Afghanistan. That's the problem. These countries who pretend to wear the white hats and their friends are allowed to interpret international law and get away with it. When it's the enemies of these countries, it's like, no, you've gone against international law, go to the Hague. It has to be everyone. You can't have these things where, if it's clear cut that turning off electricity, gas, and water is against international law, and if they do that, well, that's a problem. That means they've broken international law, and it could turn into a war crime. And therefore, you can't be backing that. You can't be making excuses for that, much like that you can't make excuses for terrorism. You can't have rules that you say we're going to all follow, and then you choose when, because you feel that something bad happens to this person. You talk about proportionality. That is not about proportionality. It's about law. If we've all agreed that these are the laws, then these are the laws. And if they don't follow these laws, they need to follow these laws and be told that, and not be supported on those things. They can be supported on the terrorist side of it and all that kind of stuff, what's happened, the massacre that's happened, but not, the problem is how do they get around this? Because the problem is yes, Hamas have used these like mosques, and they've blown up mosques, which they're not meant to do. They've blown up a university, not meant to, an infrastructure they've turned off. They're not meant to do all these things. They're all against international law. And the problem is, in the future, the other Muslim or Arab countries are going to see this, and that's going to breed more terrorism, because they're going to see mosques getting blown up and churches and universities and civilians getting killed. And they're going to say, well, where's the international law from the West? Same with what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. Same when they try to pull the people out and they put them in those ditches. I've talked about that before. So it's important to follow these things, and it's important for the West, if they want to be the bastions of truth and honesty and justice, which they all claim to be, then they need to make sure that everyone's held to the same account equally. Otherwise, then it looks like, well, it's, you only look at it when it's the people you don't like, and that's wrong. And then that breeds those, that breeds the other countries are not going to follow it. And what we want at the end of the day is everyone to follow certain rules, so that everyone, that are civilians, don't get caught up in these things. The military, if they want to kill, they can kill each other, but not civilians, because I'm a civilian. I don't want to be part of any war. I'm a pacifist. I don't believe in war. I don't believe in killing civilians. So don't include me in it, you know? So it's just, I think it's problematic the way the West is backing this and the way that the media is not really coming down hard enough on these people that are trying to make excuse for not following international law, not actually bringing up, if I can find it on my phone, then they should be able to find it on theirs and say, well, the Geneva Convention or the International Law Code, whatever, says this. So you've done this, so that means you have violated this. You have violated international law. How do you answer that? There's no answer. If you said you're going to do it and you do it, and it said that you shouldn't do that, then it's simple. And it shouldn't be anything more than that. And then maybe I guess like what I'm saying is the problem is, I was going to say this before, because the Hamas, the terrorists, are hiding within civilian people and houses and those things, it is very difficult. How do you spot the terrorists? Because you're not going to be able to, and that's the problem. That's why, like say in the Vietnam War, it was very difficult. The Vietnam War, because of guerrilla warfare. I mean, it was very difficult, and the problem is the West has also done these things, like when they bombed Vietnam, like the Israeli diplomats mentioned Dresden. Yes, we know, and the mustard gas that Churchill used. These were all against international law. The problem is because they've been, they forgot about them and they didn't face trials for them and crimes for them, even though they were against international law. Then other people think, well, that's okay then, I can do these things. I'm not sure they're looking at 9/11 in Afghanistan and Iraq, and that's why Israel think, well, yes, we can do this then. But the problem is, it is difficult because the nature of things. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Take care, take it easy, God bless, peace.